So yesterday, Faith Goldie posted a video titled, "Why White Men Walk in Weakness." Kind of an incendiary title. And it's like some kind of exchange or interview between her and Ricardo Duchesne, where Ricardo is saying something like, no Muslim or African would tolerate people coming from outside and raping their own women. And it's just sickening to me that white men tolerate this without saying nothing. And so Faith Goldie takes a crack at explaining it by saying that according to Saul Alinsky, ridicule is man's most potent weapon. And white men are basically just afraid of being ridiculed. And that's why they're passive in acquiescing to this. And does a little bit of ridiculing us for that. And this whole topic and presentation is pretty insulting, and the explanation for it is laughably inadequate, and the implied solution or course of action is even more inadequate. So why is this invasion even a problem? Why is this influx of destructive colonizing backwards peoples into Western civilization occurring? And 100% of the reason, okay, that's a slight exaggeration, the vast preponderance of the reason, or at least the reasons that are offered, the justifications, the rhetoric, play to feminine sympathies, feminine sentiments, feminine intuitions, feminine sensibilities. Like all of the sympathy arguments. Oh, the poor widow refugees got to take them in. And the, egalitarian arguments about how we're all the same. We're all just the same on the inside. And the, the inclusion arguments about, how we have to include everybody and not let them feel left out and blah, blah, blah. And, all the conflict avoidance and appeasement arguments about, don't piss off the angry outsiders who will cut our heads off. And all this kind of stuff, right? All of it. Every single bit of it. The sympathy, the egalitarianism, like the Islamophobia and racism arguments. Like, every single bit of it is aimed directly at feminine sensibilities and feminine sentiments and feminine intuitions. So the only possible explanation for why any of this is a problem, for why any of this has room to operate, for why any of this has cover and justification to proceed, for why anybody argues that we should not just not oppose this, but defend this whenever it is opposed, 100% of the reason for that is feminism unleashing the feminine on Western civilization over the last 150 years. Because without that, none of this would be an issue. Okay? And, Faith Goldie says that ridicule is man's most potent weapon. No, it isn't. Men have many more potent weapons than ridicule. Ridicule may be women's most potent weapon. So if anyone is using ridicule, and they are, to advance these kind of agendas, it's predominantly women or effeminate creatures. I can think of a particular race that are predominantly effeminate, and they use a lot of ridicule and are in a position to do so. I won't get into that here. But, besides them, it's mainly women and, queers and other effeminate types who use ridicule as a weapon. So, if ridicule is being used as a weapon here, then it's being used primarily by women. And the only reason any of these agendas are an issue is because of the enfranchisement, the emancipation, the empowering of women. That's why our institutions feel the need to cater to these sensibilities, or are actually governed, according to these sensibilities or these sentiments or these intuitions. So, Faith Goldie's apparent solution here is to turn the ridicule around. If white men are afraid of being ridiculed for standing up for white women, then she's just going to ridicule us for not standing up for white women, and that will fix the problem, apparently. Only, it's very unlikely that that's going to be the case. Very, very unlikely that that is going to be the case. Because feminism has a whole host of problems beyond just this. And it really has no way to incentivize men to fight for, to defend, to stick up for a feminist postmodern order or for postmodern feminist women. They've got the stick, the ridicule, and all the rest of it, right? The rallying, the shaming, the moralizing, the shrieking, the harping, the nagging, the scolding, right? Those are the stick in feminism. There's no carrot. There's no way to positively incentivize men to stick up for them, to protect them, and to protect their feminist social order. And this is not an issue that you're going to see anybody like Faith Goldie, grapple with or address in any serious way, because what she's worried about primarily is not just being raped by savages, but also protecting this feminist order that has been built up over the last 150 years from being undermined, by more vigorous, although more backwards, intruders. And, what's my incentive to do that? What's my incentive to stick up for that? I don't really see one. They're both pretty bad. A postmodern feminist order is terrible. And, a backwards, regressive, Iron Age savagery, also pretty terrible, especially for me, because I am not the part of the privileged class within it. I am male, but I'm, not part of the conquering horde coming in to impose it. So, I can't expect a very high position within this order. So they're both pretty terrible for me, and but no positive incentive for me to stick up for the feminist postmodern order, the liberal, democratic, feminist, whatever you want to call it, train wreck that is woefully incapable of defending itself against even the most primitive and backwards savagery. So, what's my incentive to step in and help them out from their own inadequacy to preserve this mess that they've created, and ward off this other mess that somebody else wants to create? I basically have no dog in this fight. And Ricardo kind of hits on this issue when he says, no Muslim or African would tolerate these outsiders coming in and raping their own women. So the issue really is that our own women are not our own women. Like, we have these legally enforceable obligations or whatever in a lot of cases, but what are our legally enforceable, privileges? We've got the one side of the coin, but not the other. We've got the obligations and the duties, but not the benefits and privileges. And, we got the responsibilities, but not the authority. The authority of the father in the family has been ridiculously undermined to where, he has no legally or socially sanctioned authority. It's only whatever he can manage to devise or to swing on his own. That's all there is left. And all of the power of the state and the law and the culture and everything else is going to attempt to undermine that. So, real huge incentive problem here with feminism and postmodern, liberal, democratic, global homoism. Doesn't have any way to motivate the white men to uphold it and to defend it when it can't even defend itself. Like, what's our incentive to do that? We have none. So, just ridiculing us. We're not really afraid of the ridicule. It's pretty annoying. It's pretty aggravating. It's pretty irritating. I don't think anybody is afraid of it anymore. At least not on our side, because we get it non-stop. So getting a little bit more of it from another direction. Big whoop. That's not going to change nothing. Yeah, just really pretty pathetic analysis here contained in this particular video clip, and I'm not sure why Ricardo isn't able to contribute much more, much better, because he can be kind of on point a lot of the time. So, just pretty disappointing, and this is the kind of disappointing analysis, inadequate analysis you're going to get if you're getting your news and your commentary and your political philosophy from these kind of characters, these kind of like right-wing feminist characters who may not be as obnoxious or annoying or as shrill as their left-wing counterparts still trying to move the window left, who are trying to move it back to the right to preserve the gains, the alleged gains of past feminism for themselves. But nevertheless, they're not going to get very far in their analysis. They're not going to provide you a productive course of action. They're not going to provide you incentives, any worthwhile incentives to do what they want. They're basically just asserting an entitlement and attempting to use ridicule and rallying and shaming and moralizing to obtain it. Now, all right, one final point here. If women have created bad incentives for us, and we haven't created good incentives for them, that's entirely on us, because we have agency and they don't, okay? So the failure of Western civilization under feminism and the rise of feminism, 100% our fault as men, and the solution, 100% our responsibility as men. But the first thing you have to recognize in order to start grappling with that problem and moving towards a solution, if there is one, is you have to recognize what the problem is. And so the problem here is this unleashing of feminine sensibilities and feminine sentiments within Western civilization by feminism, and that's why Western civilization is castrated, so to speak, as Faith Goldie says in her video. It's because of the unleashing of the emancipation and the enfranchisement and the empowerment of women. And unless you roll that back, you can't address these other issues like the invasion and the colonization in a sensible way. Cannot do it unless you repeal the 19th. And yes, I know there is no peaceful, democratic way to do that within the political process and all that. But that's what it's going to take to address these other issues. And there's just simply no way around that. You can't flip the ridicule script on the leftists or shame men into sticking up for women who aren't worth sticking up for and protecting orders that aren't worth protecting, etc. Just, it isn't going to work. So if you like better commentary than that, and I think I do exceed that bar. I realize it's not a very high bar to set, but there are some links underneath where you can support the channel and not get your commentary and news and opinion and analysis from some moderately attractive crypto-feminist woman.